PPP today. I want to thank you for being here today. Last weekend, we launched our campaign. It was an incredible affair. I've been in politics a long time, and I've attended campaign launches at the Kitty Market Square, and that was the biggest crowd we've ever had by far. It was an event filled with festivity, energy, enthusiasm, diversity, and full of messages for the people of this country. It had great content. People focused on promises delivered, and they were very proud that their party actually kept the commitment it made to the people of this country 5 years ago. They were excited about listening about the plans for the future. And the president laid out many of those plans. And it was very pleasing for me to see the large number of young people who came there and were part of these activities. This party has a great future because the young people are starting to pick up the mantle of leadership. And their involvement is heartwarming because it's in their hands that we will have to entrust the future of this party and country. And it's a different crowd from the traditional crowd. In that gathering, you had a large number of Indo-Guyanese, a large number of Afro-Guyanese, people of mixed descent, Amerindians, and every other description you can think of. A lot of women too came. Our party messages often resonate disproportionately with women. Many of our activists, or most of our activists, are women across this country, and they work diligently to carry the messages of the party to people in their homes. So we're extremely pleased that our launch was such an important affair, but also was different than the launch that we saw from APNU. They had a meager crowd. I see some of them saying that we had 5,000 people. You know, the usual Sherrod Duncan and the Sowell people on the other side, saying we had 5,000 people. If we had 5,000, they probably had 10, if you're using the same ratio, 10 at their rally or their launch. But clearly it shocked them. They were quiet for almost a day, which is something unusual for that side, who's prone to talk a lot about everything under the sun. It shocked them. And it sent fear down their spines. So I'm so pleased as General Secretary of the party that we've been able to mobilize people, and I want to thank them because people just wanted to be there. You know, it wasn't an affair where we had to pay people to come. We had to bully them to come. They just wanted to be there to show support for the party and the continuation of the government under the PBPC for another five years. this is important for us. It doesn't happen often with many political parties. And so I want to thank all of them for being there on that day. They made this event a success. On nomination day, we saw the same sort of enthusiasm. And we didn't pay 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever it was to get people to come. If you look at the interviews done randomly by the media, you would see that every person who spoke with the reporters spoke openly. They said why they were there, what they like about the PPP, and you saw in them the passion. And I've seen like tons of interviews done with people of every race. You couldn't find a single person in our rally, in the whole rally, that didn't know why they were there. Not the rally, the nomination day parade. You couldn't find a single person who did not know the purpose of being there on that day and who couldn't speak about why they were there. You know, normally when you pay people, they'd slink away from the cameras. They wouldn't want to give an interview. They don't know what to say. That is the difference there. And if you'd gone to the other part, or if you force people to come, they don't want to do any interview. I didn't see much of that at the PNC or the APNU rally, much of the interviews. People looked like they just wanted to get home. You know, they came there because of either love for the party or they really didn't. Many of them did not know why they were there. We saw interviews, and I'm sure that all of you are familiar with those famous interviews where people didn't really know why they were there because they're happy with what's happening in the country, but they're there just to support their party out of some sense of loyalty. And you saw that in the crowd. I looked at the people there. I saw AFC Nigel Hughes, and he must be high on something. He said it's the biggest nomination day gathering for the AFC ever. Well, it may be true, but if you have 30 people and you say it's the biggest gathering ever and you're proud of that, you have to either be on smoking something or you have an extremely low bar, you know, for achievement. And then we saw the other crowd, Win crowd, and we'll come to that a little bit later about how the crowd was put together. But it wasn't, in spite of all the tight side shots that they keep posting, like how they Photoshop the campaign poster of people in Linden, and you saw the same faces. If you observe it carefully on the same poster, the faces appearing multiple times because it was photoshopped to make it look dense, and many people, they did that, and that was their campaign poster. So too, they took tight shots. When you go with a drone, that's why in a kitty rally when I was speaking, I said, fly the drones, so people would see our crowd and they could actually look at the density of the crowd. That is important. People can come from the side, take angle shots, and you make 10 persons look like 50. But when you go up and directly above with a drone, then you can actually count people. You look at the drone shots there. They had less than 1,000 people. After claiming they would put 5,000 people, that was Wynn's claim. They would put 5,000 people on the road. And you know how now we're finding out that they had to pay people to actually go there because now people are complaining that they're now receiving their money. You had a big fight over the money paid to people to go there. All of the other crowds lack diversity. Ours was a truly national crowd that looked like Guyana. The only party that had that. No other political party, not a single one of them, had anything close to diversity. Not a single one of them, of all the others who went there. So when people talk about this party now, I expect them to say, including the media, that this is the only diverse party in this country that caters for every group of Guyanese. This is the only party. And it's been demonstrated over and over and over again. So I want to thank the people who attended that meeting, the nomination day activity too. Many came from very far. I saw a video of Sherry, who is from Linden, and Sherry was in the hospital a few months ago. Sherry, we're all fearful that she would pass away. I'm saying this bluntly. She too called us from the hospital and said, you know, I'm in a bad shape. Let me tell you a bit about Sherry. Sherry has been a member of this party for a very long time. We practically grew up in the party together. In the 90s, when I was Minister of Finance, I met Sherry, and I think at that time, early 90s, when I went to Linden to do an area study to apply for a CISMIN grant to change what had happened there. Linden was in a really bad shape. President Hoyt had signed an agreement with the World Bank to close. It's called a CISMIN program, to shut down the bauxite industry, lay off the workers. And at that time, you had no jobs there. So we were thinking about how we could diversify the economy. We did not shut down the industry. We restructured it, but we didn't shut it down. So we started subsidizing it because we had to keep jobs there for people. But we wanted to diversify the economy, so that was why we did the area study. And out of that study, we applied for a grant, a CISMIN grant from the European Union. We got about 12 million euros, and we started building infrastructure like a road into West Watuka. That's how that road was built. It was all, well, forested areas, because we wanted to open up agriculture lands in the area. We set up an incubator for business. It's a program through the LEAP program. We set up a small business revolving fund called Linden Enterprise Network for small entrepreneurs in that area. We opened up the call center to employ people there. There was lots of other things that came out of that grant, but at that time I was minister. And I met Sherry there. And since then, Sherry has been a member of this party, hard-working member. Recently, they came to Freedom House, and I saw her going back there. They set up their own campaign office. They're sewing flags with the girls in Linden. These are hardcore PPP supporters, Afro-Guyanese. So on nomination day, I saw a video after nomination day where she was being bullied in the APNU crowd. And they were hitting her and her son. So I called her the night and said, I asked her what happened. And she said, you know, I'm sick, I can't move, so I couldn't walk down the procession. So I was walking in the sidewalk, and my son was helping me, and I happened to cross the barrier and ended up in the crowd. And they were trying to get me to take off my t-shirt and to put on an APNU t-shirt. And I said, you'd have to kill me here. I'm not taking it off. And so they were bullying her. I'll let them play back that video so you can see it. That is what was happening on that side. Bullying people, even now. Out of our government even, and bullying people. But they don't know Sherry. They don't know about our loyalty and commitment to this party. She's worked in the good times and in the bad times for the PPP. That is the sort of people we have. And so since I'm speaking about nomination day, because it bothered me a lot, I didn't know that this happened to her on that day. She had just wandered off across the barrier because she's ailing and she couldn't walk in the crowd. And it is a terrible thing. And they need to really apologize to her. If Norton is a real leader, he should issue an apology to Sherry on behalf of his supporters. So, our side, people were wandering through. One man, APNU man, wandered through and he's happy and all of that, and people waved him off because we're not like that. We believe that people have a right to choose their political party, and they should be treated decently. And that is what you saw on nomination day. The mood was very, very different in our camp than any of the other camps. And not just because people know that we will win the elections, but because of we're positive and we push positivity all the time by the very nature of this party. So I just want to thank all of those people who came, brave everything, and joined the parade, and didn't want to look out for boxes of food or whatever else, or money. They didn't. Many of them walked with their own meals and stuff like that, because of love and commitment to the cause and party. And they know once we're in power, the country will benefit, and they too will make progress, all of them. So that was a very important thing for us. It was a great success again, as our launch was. And then yesterday we had another very successful activity. You may be aware that about 2 months ago, right here at this press conference, I gave a number so that people could send into the party suggestions for the manifesto. And we set up a physical box here at Freedom House so people could drop in their comments, those who did not want to use social media to do so. And we have received comments from or suggestions from over 2,000 individuals from all across Guyana, with over 5,000 suggestions. And yesterday I spoke of that. And we decided further to that we needed to have a face-to-face consultation with people. And that took place yesterday. And we were overwhelmed with the turnout by various organizations that came there, people from the private sector, from the labor movement, from the rice farmers, sugar workers, miners, different interest groups, animal rights activists, Sassoud was there, different people showed up to our activities, and it was a great success, a lot of participation from the floor. The president spoke, and he outlined a lot of the things that we had already committed to. So we circulated a document for discussion yesterday, and in that document we outline in each sector the things that we have already committed to publicly for the past several years, and that will be part of our manifesto. So there are about maybe 60, 70 things that we have here that we've already not just committed to, but put in this flyer, which will go to each home, and our activists have started yesterday to take this to every home. In fact, in Plaisance, they told me they left one by Mr. Norton's home too. I wouldn't mind receiving something from APNU, although I know they wouldn't implement whatever they put on paper. I wouldn't mind receiving a coherent piece of document from them. But, and our activists are happy. They said the reception is good in all the communities where they're taking this flyer to. So we've already been outlining what we're going to do in the future. However, when this was presented to people yesterday, it framed the discussion. And these promises that we're making for the next 5 years were informed largely by what our experience has been on the ground for the past several years, interacting with communities, listening to people, hearing their concerns, making our own assessments, and then from the suggestions that they recently submitted. So we listened, and we ensure that their biggest concerns are reflected in our policies for the next 5 years. So when we go to communities, people used to complain in the past a lot about jobs, roads. Those were used to dominate. Infrastructure and jobs used to dominate almost all of the discussions. Today, we hear very little complaint about that, because people are working. Large numbers of our people, at a minimum 60,000 people more are working than used to work in 2020. You hardly hear about that. And the roads in the communities have practically been fixed. They're appreciative of what we have done on healthcare. They used to complain about that. They recognize now that we are making investments in the healthcare, so the complaints have abated a bit, and about schools and stuff like that. And they recognize now that the government has made a lot of investments in those, and it will change better. But there are some things that they still are concerned about. And that's, for example, in our promise for the next 5 years, it's clearly reflected here. We're not going to put it in great detail, but like how we committed in local government and national elections to fix all the roads, and we did, concrete drains, because drainage in communities are vital in the city and across the country. They complain about garbage collection. We have to enhance that. Thirdly, they talk about safety in the communities. That's why security lights, and now lights in every community, and security cameras in these communities. And they also complain about people parking on trucks, etc., parking on their parapets, the place not being clean. That's why we're moving now to to have another place to give people place to park those trucks, etc., and heavy duty equipment. So we listened, and a big focus will be on cleaner, safer communities across this country, in every village and every ward in the cities and the towns across Guyana. A big, huge focus in the next 5 years on improving the communities. I left out recreational facilities right back in the community, playgrounds, etc. Those are things. So you will see a very studied approach to the manifesto. We're not going to be, promising things that are unsustainable. $1 trillion in wages and salaries increase. Although we will increase wages and salaries in the public sector, we will increase old age pension, we will increase the Because We Care grant and give another grant, transport grant to the children, all which are reflected. But so everything is deliberate. So in addition to those things, there are big areas that came up in the discussion yesterday that we had already in Maine been talking about. The digital society and incubating that, an AI policy, a technology-driven approach to development. We talk about animal rights because not enough resources have been put to support those groups, I believe, that are working to ensure that there is that part to society, that those issues are being addressed. Human rights issues, accountability in government, the reform of government to ensure efficiency, accountability of the police force, greater accountability of the police force, the judiciary, now that we are increasing the resources at their disposal, the protection of the national patrimony, that is border, but also making sure that in our migration policy that we know who is coming into our country, all the people who are working here, wherever they're from, and that we monitor them, whether they're from Venezuela or China or any other place, that we keep protecting Guyana, mainly for Guyanese first. And then, of course, we have to be generous with people who come here to work for development purposes, but they have to come in and live in our country and work according to terms dictated by our parliament and our people. So all of those issues, cultural policy to promote national values, civic education, so that we can not just promote the national identity that will bring people together, the Guyanese identity, but also resolve some of the issues that we have with selfishness and maybe the callous behavior where someone can just, like that came up yesterday at the consultation, they drive along the highway and just take 3 food boxes and wind down the window and throw it out onto the road. Or a young guy could walk down and stab a couple of homeless people and laugh at it. What kind of value? But we failed him as a youngster. The one who is laughing actually too, I believe we failed him too. Because somehow we need to, if we had done better in creating a greater value system where you can respect life and property and everything else, maybe he would have taken a different route to say, you saw what I'm talking about, that video that was being circulated some time ago, laughing over stabbing a homeless man. And so that kind of thing is very important. The road safety is crucial, getting more police off the road, but at the same time enhancing safety, because people complain about harassment on the road and stuff like that, but at the same time we need safer roads. the capital market reforms, financial literacy, financial inclusion. A lot of these things came up at the launch, but we had already been talking about them. So these are part of our plans for the next 5 years. And if we say we are going to get them done, we'll get them done. We're going to support interest groups, religious bodies. The president made an announcement on Independence night, the night before our independence this year, about working more through religious groups to extend social services and to help to build the value system of the country, supporting the faith that we have. You know, we have several, our people are extremely religious, and supporting our religious leaders and the organizations so they can do a lot of this sort of thing. Of course, I'm not going to mention the traditional things that we've spoken about, support for miners and the farmers and young people and sugar workers and public servants. Those are standard, and the joint services. But these are some additional things that you will see spoken more about. They'll be in our manifesto. We would have to balance how much we put in the manifesto because we don't want it to be too long, but for every sector, we have a plan. Infrastructure, if we write up a manifesto on infrastructure, all our plans for infrastructure, it will be more than people can read. And a manifesto, you want to be tight so that people can get the broad ideas, but knowing that these are supported by individual plans. APNU will put a manifesto with the slogans, but they have no planning. No planning or no plan for the sector behind it to buttress what they put together. So this is the difference, and I want people to understand that. Our infrastructure manifesto, plans alone will be major because they would serve to enhance, as I said before, the productive capacity of the country and also to bring greater benefits to our people. These are 3 activities this week that we had in the People's Progressive Party, all very successful with massive numbers. The launch, nomination day, manifesto consultations. And we expect this to continue. And I want to thank again the people who showed up yesterday to come to listen to a political party lay out some of its plans for the future and then share their views on this. And many of them, we didn't ask them whether they support the PPP, and some of them may not. But they came there, and I think they came because they know we're serious about this country, and we're serious about keeping our promises, and we're serious about listening to them. And that's why they came from various organizations. So I want to, on behalf of the party, thank them for being there. There are a couple of things yesterday I spoke of, that all of these promises will be done in a framework. So I don't want to repeat it at my press conference. I think it's already in the public domain. But I spoke of the overarching framework to support all of these policies, which you will find only in the PPP. Because what the other parties will do, you will get a series of promises without the framework. And we have laid out the framework. So the first is the LCDS, which is a framework for sustainable, creative management of natural resources, but it's also a development strategy. We are creative, sustainable in the sense that every sector of our economy will be looked at, and all our natural resources, how we protect them and use them sustainably for the next 100 years into the future. Creative because we've been able to convert the use of these resources into a capacity to earn, like the LCDS and the sale of forest carbon, and then utilize those resources to tackle national issues that affect all of our people. So we've used the funds for adaptation. Many other countries don't have an adaptation policy, or they do have, but they can't fund it. APNU never had one, nor they never talk about funding it. So how would you safeguard the future of this country against climate change and the adverse weather patterns that we're already experiencing? We've taken money not from the Treasury, but from this creative use of our natural resources by the sale of forest carbon to invest in that activity that would safeguard our communities and thousands of acres, well, tons of economic activities, particularly farming, and then also become a growth spur for development because they would open up more lands and arable lands and drain more lands. So we're converted all of this into safeguarding the country and also as an economic growth factor for the country. So that is, in a nutshell, one of the frameworks we've established. Where does APNU speak about the environment policy in a single document? There is old Green State strategy that nobody pays attention to. It's done by UNEP and GGGI, external groups, had no relevance practically to Ghana. So they don't have that. So they can't even speak about that framework. Macroeconomic management, we have laid this out. Our exchange rate policy, our borrowing policy, our fiscal policy, the monetary policy, how these all come together to ensure that the framework is conducive to growth, that we avoid the Dutch disease, which has beleaguered and plagued many countries that had a surplus in revenue and therefore led to the shrinking of their economy. They can't handle volatility in prices for natural resources because the economy structures change because of that change in relative or changes in relative prices. So all of that. Key factor. Our borrowing policy, I laid out yesterday how low our debt burden is now compared to the past. We have some of the lowest debt figures in the world and debt servicing figures. But it doesn't mean because we have that. So what we've done, we've effectively removed the burden from the next generation to pay the debt. But even with that low debt or great capacity to borrow, it doesn't mean we're going to be borrowing significantly in the future, because we'd be able to fund more of our economic activities from our own resources. But we're not going to be borrowing to eat. We're going to be borrowing to invest in productive capacity, either economic or social. So hospitals, schools, yes, for education, but not to consume, as APNU did. And that was what led us to the debt burden in the future. And we'd borrow to support the growth of the productive sector. So we've laid that out. We talk about equity in the distribution of resources. That's another big framework that guides us. Equitable distribution of our resources among regions, among all of our people. So if we're developing housing, it's for all of our people, regardless of how they look or where they live. If we're investing in education, it's for all of our people. If we're helping pensioners, we're helping all of them. If we're helping people, single mothers, it's everyone. If we're building daycare and night care facilities, it's for people across the country. That is what we're about. Equity, so that we don't, for us, it's not about selecting one group and just assisting that group. equity in the distribution of resources and access to resources. But of course, we want to split, we want to narrow divide. So you have a hinterland coastal divide in terms of services in the hinterland versus the coast. We want to narrow that gap. So that means banking services, a whole range of other services. We have a rural urban gap here too along the coast. So if you live say, Essequibo Coast, you may not be able to access the same sort of resources if you live in Georgetown, or services that you live in Georgetown. We have to incentivize the creation of these services or push the government to go out there. And this is important for us. So filling that gap. The next big broad area is what do we do to create more wealth for people at the personal level, at the business level. So we have to now support people in wealth creation, create more opportunities for them. So that's why we spoke about financial instruments, the development bank, more education, more training, entrepreneurial training, more technical training for people, give them the tools for personal growth, etc., and wealth creation. And then, so we support them to take advantage of the opportunities we have. And the taxation system must evolve to support families and to support people who work harder, must keep more of their money. The government should take less taxes from people who work harder. This is the sort of philosophy that underpins all that we're doing. So we are guided by these long-term vision, or this long-term vision. The oil and gas sector must be properly managed. We're the only political party that can lay out today what we have done for this sector. We have now a new PSA. We have committed ourselves to auction in the future because we're doing the seismic for the blocks. So we have changed the conditions under which oil and gas companies will operate in the future. We now have a modern law, which we didn't have when we got into office. We updated the 1986 Act. We have a local content law that is helping Guyanese, and we intend to expand it so more Guyanese will get opportunities there for work as well as business opportunities. We've laid this all out. We're the only political party that can speak in terms of details of what we've done. APNU said they're afraid PPP would steal their ideas, so they will unveil it when they get into office. Nigel Hughes, who still works for Exxon, he said, I don't know what he's saying because he said it different things at different times. He set up an oil and gas committee, then that disappeared. Said he wouldn't speak about oil and gas, then that was a lie. He spoke about the oil and gas sector. He said he never appeared for Exxon and the others. We have a video evidence of him appearing on their behalf at the CCJ. That's a prolific lie. And so we don't even know what their policies are. We know one thing though, which he said to the Demerara Waves. If their interest conflicts with that of ours, he'll take the Exxon side. He said that bluntly, openly. You can check it for yourself. So nothing. And I saw when Dennis Shabral asked Azruddin Mohammed about a question on oil and gas. I think when he heard the question, before Dennis got to the end, he forgot the first word, and he was looking around for the nearest toilet. I saw the look on his face. It was a strained look, an unusual look. So that will come shortly or soon, the policy. So nobody else has laid out anything in this sector. It's a crucial industry. They have not demonstrated any competence or credibility to speak about this sector. Although it's an important sector that has to be carefully navigated and integrated in our economy in a way that doesn't cause the harm that it has caused in other countries. And you see they're disputing now. They said something like, I saw a headline, they're disputing my approach on the oil and gas. Because I said the last time that my Paul said at their rally, we can give away all this free money because we'd have all of the 10 FPSOs operating offshore by 2030. And I pointed out that what if the oil prices tank? Now, just one thing, what if oil prices come down as they've come down in the past? Everything they promised, they haven't promised a single thing to create value in this country, you know. They want to shut down Gaisuko. They don't have any promise to boost mining or create jobs, etc. Only to spend money all the time and not spend even on infrastructure or anything else. That they want to just hand out wages and salaries alone, all the money in the budget, double the amount of oil money in the budget. And oh, we'll have 10 FPSOs offshore. That's their oil and gas strategy, and that's their national strategy. So they're a bit embarrassed that we pointed this out. So as they're prone to do, they come up with all sorts of frivolous things in the course of the week, and then these get repeated in the Kaieteur News and Stabroek News and many and their incredible sources or whatever. So that's what Sherry Duncan nonsense. So I just wanted to refocus people on the things that matter, because in this period when we are campaigning and there is nothing, no policy coming from the other side, we may fall into the same trap of basically going after the nonsensical issues that they come up with occasionally and forget to talk about the serious things that matter to our people. And we can talk about this because we're the only party that has outlined this or have clear plans for them. That is why I keep coming back to the serious matters. Because we can get lost in the nonsense that is currently passing off as politics. So this brings me to the list of candidates. So you've seen some of the names on our side. We have a good deal of experience in our list. People who have been in government for a while. They've run sectors in the economy. Prime Minister and a presidential candidate who have been involved in public service and policy making and policy implementation for decades. So we have an experienced team. So you can expect from September 2nd that they'll get back to work on continuing the development in the country and addressing the promises. We don't need to go through a learning curve. We don't need a learning curve. Like under APNU, you had ministers who, their last government, who were clueless. They put a man named Holder as Minister of Agriculture. I don't think he ever went underground. One or two times, clueless about the sector, almost in every area. They are more concerned about their own welfare and nothing else. Because they didn't have any experience. We can hit the ground the next day. We can continue extending help to people the next day. That's the first thing. So our list has experience with. We have a ton of new faces. As I said before, on I think nomination day, we have 27 persons on our list, on the national list, who are below 25 years old. One person is 18 years old. She's from Region 8. And they're from all over Guyana. Young people from all across our country. We didn't pick up all Congress Place staff and put them on our list because we had a hard time to get people, find people, if you check some other lists. We didn't take staff members of the party's headquarters. We have an abundance of young people across the country. We have a youth movement that is 15,000 strong. And so young people are prominently reflected on the list. They're working, some of them are working, a few are students still, but we think that exposing them very early on lists is important as a signal, not just for those young people who are on the list, but other young people across the country, that they too can contribute at the national level, never mind their age. Some of us got that opportunity in our party. I became a member of the PYO when I was 13 years old. By 16, I was a member of the party, and thereafter in 20s, minister, etc. That is how we work at the party level. So a lot of young people, a lot of professionals in the different sectors. So take, for example, we have a Mahendra Karpen, who's a cardiologist, famous cardiologist in the country. On one list I saw, they have a man who forges rotation, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. We have educators. We have Kofi Darimpa, who is a dean at the university in the engineering faculty. I don't want to list all the names now, but these are people who've been studying things in the different areas, who can make a contribution to policy, as well as they're specialists in their fields. If you look at the other lists, and I'm going to come to those in a minute, then you will see the stark difference. So it's not just that we're the only party with a track record, and we are the only party with a defined plan for the future. We also have the experience, the skill to implement those. They have no policy-making skill in APNU's list. Not a single one of them who is engaged in serious policy-making. I saw they have Vera. Vera is, I shouldn't be calling people fossil, but I think I already just did. But these are people who are in a total waste of time. I remember the last election year begging, and their friend was very generous. He came here to Freedom House in the morning to get on our list, and I wasn't inclined to, and the president was generous, say, give him a chance. But he is like a nuisance. What would Vera do? Terence Campbell has jumped ship from AFC to APNU. But Terence Campbell had a thriving business under the PVP. And then in the period under APNU, his business practically collapsed. I think and he sold out to a Jamaican company, the church's franchise, and then had to get, because he claimed he couldn't pay the taxes, he wasn't even remitting the VAT that he was collecting, our money that he was collecting on behalf of the government. Every time you buy a piece of chicken, you pay the VAT. He's supposed to remit that to GRA. Did not remit it for a long time. And I think he got a write-off because of that, the financial hardships of $120-something million from GRA. I can go down the long list of individuals, absolutely, just no experience at policy. Norton himself, I've dealt with that. Paul, what could Paul, in terms of policy making experience, bring? So it's not just, if you are on their side, you have to really just force yourself to be excited about anything they say or the people that they put forward. You have to really force yourself. I can imagine the hardcore supporters of the PNC having to force themselves to really approach this party or support it, because they're nothing. I'm not going to deal with Amanza and the others, because they're what should I say? Again, nothing much there. You're not going to get anything much there. That's even worse than happened. So, and then Win has come up with a list. Clearly they had a hard time. I saw the region, nobody of any prominence, not a single person of any prominence. So they have Mark, the Forge of France. They have, so I don't know what he would tell a doctor or any person in the sector. What do you say? What could he teach him? Forge your way into registration. Then we have Harbhajan, a deportee, a hustler in Berbice, who was AFC. He was one of the Azruddin's minder on the day too. I'm talking about the minders. Odessa Primus. I don't know what Odessa does. I think she was a APNU plant with Azruddin until it backfired. But I think she's into comedy, right? Not that it's a bad thing, we need some good laughs sometime. But you're talking about policy making and running the country. Then they had Lowenfield's assistant, Keith Lowenfield's assistant from GCOM, some Hetzberger. That was the other one. Did I miss anyone? Oh, the former General Secretary of the PNC. Nothing there. Looking around, shopping around to join different political parties. So like I saw the one from, there was some General Secretary of ANO, some Sobrian guy. And so they're hunged in people to see me. One of our activists keep calling me. He wants to come and see me. So he came and see me. Then a day, here, just here, you're sitting there. And I think he was looking for something, an offer. But knowing how we work, we don't offer anyone. So I said to him, if you want to come to us, you're welcome in the family. If you don't want to, that's your choice. That's your business. There's no special offer. So I heard that he's supporting Azruddin along with the France. And then I saw Jaipal Sharma too. Jaipal Sharma been trying to set up a meeting. Jaipal Sharma rose from the dead, and he tried to get in touch with me. So came to see me. I was sitting in my office, wanted to see me, and I said, all right, let him come. And he said to me, you tell me what to do. And I said, I don't tell people what to do, because I was cautious about him going out there to say that I'm asking him to come to the PP. So I said, you do whatever you feel is good for you. If you want to, support the PP, it's up to you. If you don't want to, it's fine with us. So I think he too was looking for offer. Like how the one-man party got offers on the APNU last coalition. So they created a one-man party like Tabita. Like Tabita created a one-person party. Jaipal Sharma had a one-person party. My dear friend, NFA, what's him again? Keith Scott had a one-man party, and then they became ministers just by one-person party. I think they were thinking that would work with the PVP. That's not how we work. We have offered anyone anything, including the current ministers. We work, we win elections, then we decide. But you're on the list of candidates. They share positions out before they even get a single vote. They're looking, because that's important for them. So I saw he then joined, which party? AFC, yes, he joined the AFC too. There are zeros, nothing. This is what is going on out there. People play. So when you see a Tabita and a Hastings, they're just looking out for themselves. They're just looking out for themselves. Don't pay too much heed. That's not anyone worth, even looking at. They're just very selfish. So that party, and then I saw in the region, Win has been struggling too. So they have like 4 or 5 members from a single family in the regional list. France put his name back in Burby's list, in the regional list. Imagine you're a national candidate, right? So, and then contesting for the regional elections. I can understand if you're on the top up and the geographic. But, so for him, and and he got 3 votes in the local government elections in New Amsterdam, in the area where he is born, in 2018. So that is the sort of mediocre list that they have put up. Several people have who with a criminal past. We just checked Region 1's list, and when you Google, we found several people who have either been charged of murder, larceny, robbery under arms, a whole range of stuff. It seems as though that's where Azruddin Mohammed has been the most attractive, in those quarters. So you have a grievance in Essequibo Coast. I think one man, quite a few, one teacher who was fired from the school because of trouble with a minor or something like that. Those are the kinds of characters, people who have grievances. No mainstream people went to them. Nothing. Had a hard time putting together. And you see now people are trying to come off his list, and they're trying to bully the people back. Ones who wrote GCOM, they're trying to call them and bully them because they're very prone to that sort of bullying. When they can pay people off, they try to bully them. So in terms of policies, in terms of plans, in terms of competitiveness on the list itself, experience, the PPP ranks way above the other political parties. I see Starbuck News saying Nigel Darmlal is on the list, but they wouldn't say Doggy is on. They didn't put a headline that Doggy is on Mohammed's list, and Doggy said he gave the name to the Win party. Doggy made a statement, and he calls the shots over there. I see the videos from Doggy saying that. They wouldn't say that. The Abu News didn't headline that. Or they tuck it into the bottom of the story. But Nigel Darmlal's name is on the front page. The assessment of the PP. That is the duplicity. They've been covering up for the Mohammeds for a long time, the mainstream media, because they thought he was going to affect the People's Progressive Party. So this brings me to the plan. Clearly, APNU and AFC have been collaborating with the Mohammeds for the past several months. I think they deployed people like the Odessa Primus and even Don Hastings to go to him. I think I know that they use their own network on the ground. If you check how many of the people are on his list, you'll see their former APNU people. They deployed their network on the ground to support him. AFC did that more openly by Ramaya and the Harbajans and all of the others, and Charles Sogrim, who was his campaign manager. They sent them over to work with him, all with the hope that he will cause the PPP's support to dwindle, and we will get back to a situation like we had in 2011, where the PPP had the majority in the presidency, but did not have the majority in parliament. That was their calculation. And we've seen evidence of it, the collaboration. Nobody with any sense would think otherwise. Why do you think Burke and all of the others and the other social media activists and didn't criticize him, including Sherrod Duncan? In fact, they tried to promote him all along. The PNC activists were saying great things about him all along. So, because of this plan, it was clearly the well laid out plan. They wanted him to go to the sugar belt and say to the people, because AFC couldn't do it or APNU, having done what they did to the sugar industry or the rice farmers. They wanted him to go and say, oh, I'm going to do more for you, and hopefully draw the support that they had from those areas in 2015. But it didn't succeed. People saw through it on the ground, and we pointed this out to our base. We came here and many places across the country that this is a criminal who is trying to save himself. He has no loyalty to country or cause or people. He is trying to protect himself. Single word about Azruddin Mohammed negative in the last several months. Not Paul, not Norton, not Ureta Finance, not Nigel Hughes, nobody. Suddenly, Paul is saying a vote for Azruddin is a vote for the PPP, because they now realize that he may get, well, I think people are sensible too. He may get some support from people who traditionally supported him. And so now they've started, you see, more and more questioning being done. So what took place outside of the Umanayana was that new reality. Because we had said all along, why is the media giving him a free pass? Travis Chase, favorable things. Gordon Mosley, favorable things. Kaicho News, favorable things. Starbuck News, many of them were favorable. Imagine anyone from the PPP being sanctioned by the United States of America. If anyone from the PPP been accused by Reuters for cocaine smuggling from Colombia or laundering money for Russian mafia, we would have been dead by now with criticism from Starbuck News. They would have had 30 editorials on that person. Mosley and all of the others would have been all over us. Just imagine that happening. If the images that came out with him with the girls and the accusation of trafficking Brazilian women or underage girls that had come out about a PPP person, those images there, oh, it would have been everywhere. They'll be editorializing on it. They just went quiet. They just went quiet on it all because they're complicit with him. They were pushing him along because they think, oh, he's going to damage the PPP. They're finding out differently now. And so the tone has changed a bit. And we said, how could a man get away from all of this? How could a person submit an invoice, a fake invoice for $75,000 for a Lamborghini, and nobody wants to write about it even? They didn't do it. How could a person get this far without a single press conference or answering a single question to the media and be a presidential candidate? We've been saying this all the time. I even offered to help him host a press conference. Nobody was asking for the press conference. But suddenly now we hear, are you bluffing your way into the presidency? Because now it's changing. And why is it changing? Not because they're committed, many of them are committed to the transparency, because they realize that he may not be really denting the PPP support. He may not be denting the PPP support. He may be coming after APNU support. So suddenly things have changed. And you see now when the tough questions are asked, you see what I've said from the beginning. You remember when his father, I said, stay away. If you criticize the PPP, we'll come back after you. You can do whatever you have to do, but stay away from us. Because if you come after us, we'll come back after you. And his father said, oh, he made a lot of accusation. We wanted to kill his son. I said, if you have that information, go to the police, give it to the Americans. Lied, of course. I said at that press conference, the very first one, that he is a wannabe gangster, and two, he is, I said the second point, oh, he can't string two coherent thoughts together. And both have proven correct. Look at, he prides himself in surrounding himself with people, and we'll come to that in a minute, that carry a lot of guns and engage in bullying, etc. He thinks he is a little Escobar. That's what he thinks about himself. It's true. And secondly, he can't string two coherent thoughts together, and that was proven correct again in front of the Umanayana. Really, if this guy, you could see the blankness in his head. You could see the blankness in his head, almost translucent. You could see through his head. There, he was like, where am I? What's going on here? People asking me questions. And he had nothing to say. That's why I said he had this strained look on his face like he wanted to go to the toilet when he was asked the questions. That's his first time that the media really asked him questions. And now you see soonly, shortly, I don't know what he was saying there. That's all he could say. And then the miners already, and the miners are now very smart too. Mark France said, we'll have a people-centered development that will focus on people. Of course, if you have a people-centered development, it can't focus on donkeys. That's what the generalization again. They were jumping in all the time to save him. They saved him. Odessa Primus was saving him, minding him they took him to the interior where he can't meet the press. And then when I think the guy from Trinidad, the journalist from Trinidad, was asking him question, Odessa Primus tried to bully him there. Everywhere they mind him like a child. They're watching there to see if he would say anything. Everybody is on like their edge. Look at their faces. How could you have a presidential candidate like that? It's shameful. Shameful. And so they jump in. Imagine Harbhajan trying to save him. Harbhajan, for the last 5 years, Harbhajan has been calling me all the time, trying to get the Minister of Agriculture to give him a little raise. For 5 years, nearly. That's the nature of the people you're talking about. Harbhajan is the minder. And Odessa Primus. And so you've seen it. Just one opportunity. So I'm looking forward to him launching his manifesto and speaking like President Ali will speak and spoke yesterday without a script and speak for an hour on the plans. It will be something I'll pay to go to. I will even pay to go to that performance, I want to see it. I'm sure every one of you waiting to see the performance here. Even when they give him a script, I see sometimes they give him a script to read on TV. Right? He's reading a script and making mistakes. Reading a script and doesn't know what's written there. This is for, they have something Essecubo on the rise, one of their Facebook pages. After he was accused of being a puppet of Venezuela, and so they want to show that he is strong on Essecubo. Essecubo is ours. They keep posting about how he went to QC and he was and he finished University of Guyana. They're posting that about him, a campaign. This guy, what his real thing. I don't think he even completed. There's nothing wrong in not completing CXE, but really speak the truth, speak the truth about it. That is what we're talking about. It's all a farce. They have created an image because it's, as I said before, curated. Nice pictures, Photoshop them, get an army of trolls to sing his praise. He's a great philanthropist and all of that. Now, according to the faith, Islam, you're not even supposed to speak about your philanthropy. It's prohibited by the Holy Quran. He cites God all the time. You don't even speak about it. But how genuine was it in any case? And so they've curated this image of him, but it's all falling apart. It will fall apart if you have 5 minutes with him. And the media just had 5 minutes with him, and we saw the disaster it was. People just got a little peek into this emptiness that occupies his head. So you're going to find out more. As I said before, I want to get a journalist pass to go to his launch of his manifesto, because I doubt he'd invite me. And I would love to be there to witness that. I may just have to do it you want to bet it wouldn't happen? You want to bet the press conference that he said very soon will never happen, where he's alone. Don't bring the minors, the babysitters. Don't bring them. Go to the press conference alone for a couple of minutes, even 15 minutes press conference. And then the country will see what we're dealing with. So I had to deal with that because even now, today, they are misleading people again. So last night, they issued a statement that the police is discriminating against him because they went to look for him at the headquarters. And so the police have been looking for Doggy for a while. They issued a wanted bulletin, and we all know why. It's been out in the public for a couple of days now, where he brutally beat a woman with a gun, and overpayment for the attendance at the nomination day activity. Brutally beat the woman with a gun, even cocked the gun at her. And this is a criminal act. So we just discovered, after he lied once more to say, oh, I'm a presidential candidate, look at how they're discriminating, they raided my headquarters, that the girl who was brutally beaten gave a statement to the police force saying that he took Doggy to his home after the incident, took the girl to his home, and then kept her there basically against her will. And when she tried to leave, they threatened her by showing her a gun, one of his guards, and saying, we know where you live. And I hope the police take away the guns for the guards too, because this guy seems to have some connections in the police force. That's unbelievable. So they don't treat him the same way they treat ordinary citizens. So threaten the girl, and then they offered her $500,000 to cover up the matter, so she has to go with Doggy to the police to say she dropped the matter. That he offered to pay her $500,000. So he was trying to cover up the brutal beating of this woman by a person who is on his list, by one of his organizers, by the guy who said that he gave the party its name, the one who gave the party his name. Now he then hypocritically issued a statement publicly saying he distanced himself from the act, and at the same time when he issued the statement, he then invites Doggy to his home based on what the girl is saying, and with the girl to try to cover the story up. So distancing for the public again, so we would say, oh, you can't blame him for it, and then trying to cover up the thing. So I saw some statement from Doggy saying he left the marmots, but that's, of course, it looks like it's fake because it was planted for a particular purpose. Now that this has emerged. So if the police are obligated by law to, if somebody does that, you're engaged in perverting the course of justice, to question the person. So they're saying because he is Muhammad now, he must not be questioned. The police can't get him. Looking for sympathy again, that they raided him because he's a presidential candidate, not because he was engaged in covering up the brutal beating of this woman who was seeking payment for attending his activity by one of his candidates who is still on his list. That is what the issue is about. And you're going to see the trolls, oh yes, they raided his headquarters. It wasn't for that because he's a candidate. It's because he was part of this act. He is part of Doggy's act of where they beat this woman, covering it up. He had no remorse for it. He wanted to end it there. So Doggy could beat 10 other women. That is what he is trying to cover up. And the police, if they didn't go, then everybody would say here, oh, you're treating him differently. You're treating him differently. He could do this and he doesn't get into trouble, but you let an ordinary citizen do this, then they will be in big trouble. It's a criminal act. And he's directly linked to it through this statement made by the young lady. It's a disgusting thing. Just who would do that sort of thing? Beating the woman. And all she was looking for is her money. They promised to pay them for going to their rally. Leave boat, and drink boat. I think maybe I just end here since and let's deal more with the questions. So we're going to go to Albion this week. I want to say to people in Berbice who are looking, your chance to come out, and I hope that you're ready, because we take the campaign now to Berbice. We expect it to be a huge turnout there again in Berbice, and people from all of the areas are showing up. So I'm expecting people to do that. The president will be in Madia. He'll be speaking to people in Madia, the president and the prime minister in Moruca. We're taking our campaign all over the country, and we're positive about things. I'm sorry today I had to spend so much time on this guy, because right now he doesn't really matter to us in the BBP. It's not going to make no difference, because people have seen through him. And now I hope APNU would realize their own folly. And this guy has nobody's interest at heart. So normally I don't spend time, but this week was, who could resist it? I couldn't, after seeing that performance outside of the Umanayana. He shocked even me, who had such a low impression of him. Thank you.
Jarman, NCN News. My first question is a follow-up. You mentioned that you met with Jaipal Sharma. When did this meeting take place, and what was he?
A few weeks ago. I just did that in passing. But he asked to see me, not about anything political. I'd seen Jaipal Sharma for ages, so he asked to see me. I've been meeting with lots of people as General Secretary of the party. It's my duty to meet people, talk to them. I've done that. He asked to see me. I saw him. He asked, tell me what you want me to do. And I said, I'm not telling nobody what to do. You do what's good for yourself. That's my approach, always. I don't ask people to, like, when they come, I'll say, you're going to get this if you join us. In fact, he wasn't going to bring anything to us. So that was my thing. But I see lots of people. Some I wouldn't even name. Some from the opposition too, who come to see me a lot.
The second question is on oil and gas. You mentioned earlier the seismic surveys being done. Can you provide an update on the progress being made by Shearwater?
There are several groups that were assessed to do the work. So we plan, because it's a large volume of work and we wanted to move swiftly, to complete the seismic before we go to the next auction. So we would have now in the next auction, we'd have the seismic, we'd have the new PSA, and we'd also have the new law, the updated law, which we didn't have when we launched the last auction. Because of these three pieces of information or documents, we expect we'd have better response to the auction. So because of that, we decided that we're going to share the work among several of the seismic companies, international ones, would come here. So I think what 2 or 3 were recommended for the different blocks. I don't know where it's at this time because I'm focused entirely on the campaign now, but we'd resume that after 6 weeks. No, the seismic wouldn't be going on. If we went out to tender and the ministry had assessed the tenders, and this was the approach we were taking, to give the work to several companies rather than one company, so they can work simultaneously to complete all the seismic, and that would allow us sometime next year to go to the auction.
Dr. Jagdeo, Michael Rodriguez for Daybreak News. How confident, given election is so close and the importance of the Guyana police force to maintain law and order at this time, how confident is your government that you are more in control of the police force than Azzedine Mohammed, given the situations that are unraveling right in front of our eyes that suggests the government's leverage on the police force is weaker than that of Mohammed?
No, I don't. It's not even a question of that. The police force has been doing great work for this country for a long period and on a daily basis. Without the police force, there'll be chaos here. They've had a great deal of success in enforcing the law against perpetrator criminals. There are elements within the police force that bring disrepute to the police force. They do so by harassing people when they should not on the streets, sometimes traffic police. They did so when they falsely put out the information on Adriana Young. They've done so when they leak information to the Mohammeds, but that's not the police force. Those are individuals, and they must be found and be dealt with. That is what I'm saying. Not the police force, because the police force actually did its job. It went looking for him. So he then probably disappeared from there because somebody shared the information with him. But they had a duty to go and question him, because if somebody makes a report like that on a serious matter, there's a serious matter. This country saw this man beating a girl with a gun. With a gun, just like it's not something that a conjecture, the whole country saw it. And he's trying to cover it up. And then not just cover it up, take them together to his place and also threaten the girl if she was leaving and telling her, we know where you're living. That is what happened, she claimed, took place by his guard. That's a serious matter. So it's not the police force I'm talking about. I'm talking about the individuals. But not just for the Mohammed matter, but there are individuals who give us a bad name. All the time we have to take the heat for them. Every time they harass somebody on the road, we take the heat too. We don't accept that. We don't believe that our citizens must be harassed. or that they should be leaking information. We want a professional thing. So nobody called the police to say go after him. But they have a duty to do that based on reports. If you had done it, they would be at your home. They would be at your home too. Why should they not go to look for him? Yes, go
Dr. Jagdeo, given what is on the OFAC's list, one of the pointers on the OFAC is the headers for the different paragraphs of the OFAC list suggested that the Mohammeds have corrupted government officials. Have your government been able to assess the root or level of corruption or how many people the Mohammeds have been able to corrupt within the government, or it is just limited to May Thomas, who also was sanctioned with them?
Well, the thing is that, first of all, I don't want at this period, I know that there's an investigation launched because it launched even before the election started, the campaign started, and before he declared. Looking at the shipment of gold out of the country and who were the officers in the gold board, the Geology and Mines Commission, the airport, everywhere on duty at that time, and to look at patterns. I know that there are people also from GRA who have been examined, and they are looking at calls made to him during that period, etc. I know that investigation, but it doesn't span only those 5 years, from 2018 to 2023 that the US is talking about. It's even before that. I heard that somebody who is on his list now was working at Sarah, Sarah, who may have helped, who is on his list now, so who may have helped in that period. So I'm aware that those investigations are ongoing. So there may be a number of people who will have to face accountability when this matter is dealt with. I said the last time that we're in the political season, so those investigations that are ongoing by the police, by SOCU, by FIU, by GRA, should be kept at the technical level, not political level now, because he is as a political party now. But at some point in time, it's not disappearing. After the 6 weeks, there will be a return to a lot of these things, issues. And people will have to pay their taxes with the penalties. They will have to face accountability for all of the illegalities. No, can't buy your way out of criminality. We made it clear.
Dr. Jagdeo, given your explanation, just to follow up, given your explanation, which suggests the government is pussyfooting around dealing
Not
with
pussyfooting,
Mohammed's
no, not
head on because of not wanting to make it look like political persecution. What then happens when Mohammed gains a seat? How is he dealt with then? He is a criminal, outright criminal. The government goes around and doesn't want to deal with him. How is the government going to deal with him when he has a seat in parliament?
No, in our parliament, unlike some across the parliaments in the world, parliamentarians have immunity from criminal prosecution. In other parts of the world, many in Latin America, in many countries in Latin America, they have immunity. In our case, you don't have immunity. Whether you're a parliamentarian or not, you commit a criminal act, you have to face the music. And so there is no need to vote in the parliament to lift the immunity from a particular parliamentarian. because there is none. There is no immunity for parliamentarians when they're sitting parliamentarians or even after they become parliamentarians. There's no immunity.
Don't you see it being even, or the thought of hypothetically being embarrassing to imagine in the future, very near future, after all that has happened in Guyana between the PPP and the PNC, soon there will be a parliamentarian that will be headed in handcuffs?
About this guy all the time. I've made it clear my position on these matters before. I don't want to waste my time behind somebody. Our key opponent is still APNU. APNU is the key opponent because they're seeking to mislead a lot of people. I suspect between now and the elections, more and more will be revealed to the people of this country about Azruddin Mohammed and those who surround him, that will have an impact on the elections, and not by the PPP, by a number of other people. They would know his true nature. So we are focused on the elections, entirely on the elections, and positive things about the election. I don't want to waste my time behind the moment. I said this before, but he's still lying out there trying to paint himself as the victim. Go on, Wendell.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Wendell Jeffrey, Channel 2 Headline News. The late Jagdeo Bouterse from Suriname was accused, tried for a number of human rights violations and murders. When Mr. Hughes was asked if Azruddin, having been sanctioned, can function as the president of Guyana, his answer was that if Jagdeo Bouterse can function as the president of Suriname, then Azruddin Mohammed can function as the president of Guyana, even though he was sanctioned. Okay. What's your take on that concept?
So, right there you have evidence of the collaboration between the AFC and Mohammed. Now, we saw the image of them going into Nigel Hughes' office. Nigel Hughes made an excuse that they were there to talk about legal stuff, but he had to have his advisor, Raphael Trotman, his political advisor, in a meeting that they were speaking of legal matters. As though he wasn't competent. He needed advice from Raphael Trotman on the legal issues. Clearly, it was the beginning of the collaboration. For him to say that, first of all, Bouterse was not sanctioned by OFAC. That's one. Bouterse had issues with the Netherlands, so he couldn't travel to the Netherlands. Eventually, I met Bouterse in the United States of America. I met him there as president. He was staying in a nicer hotel than I was staying at. So we chose as president to go to his hotel. And I met him in the United States of America. The Mohammeds can only go one way to the United States of America. If they're taken to the United States of America. So it's bullshit that Nigel Hughes is talking. He is collaborating with the Mohammeds. Probably paid, I don't know if they paid him handsomely or not, I don't know, but clearly a collaboration. They used to say the same thing about Prime Minister Modi. Modi was never sanctioned by OFAC. They talk about Irfan Ali. Irfan Ali was never sanctioned by OFAC. OFAC, you have a few people, less than 20,000 people globally. of 7 billion, 8 billion people in the world, less than 20,000 globally, are sanctioned by OFAC. And he and his father are two of them. So it's, as I said again, it's nonsense. I should, to a religious man, I shouldn't really use the word bullshit.
It's okay.
It is that.
You speak of the loyalty your party has for people who support your party.
No, what do you mean by that? I speak about loyalty. Yeah, we look out for people who are pro PPP. Yes.
I'm premising my question on that. I saw Doggy saying he's looking for a party with loyalty.
No,
Are
not
you
that,
prepared?
Not that. Oh, Doggy is looking for a party with loyalty. That's all a setup thing. I did not know. I actually took it on at face value that Doggy had distanced himself. But people say, don't believe Doggy will change his mind every 5 minutes. So I did not until I saw the police report today that said that Azruddin, after he issued the statement distancing himself from Doggy under beating, then took Doggy to his home, brought the girl over, kept her there because he had to go out and say, you can't leave now, and they showed her a gun, and then offered to pay her off to drop the matter. So, no, not this party with that kind of loyalty, Doggy. You could try with maybe, I don't know, Apnu.
Dr. Jagdeo, good afternoon. Vanu Manakchan, the Guyana Times. You mentioned a reform of the government to ensure efficiency. Does this include new ministries? And you also spoke about the current cohort of ministers not guaranteeing a position in the next term. What criteria are you looking at for that new cabinet?
Well, the president chooses the cabinet. And clearly, he will, you have to look at performance. In my view, performance, suitability, skill, people skill, a whole range of factors go into this, having been there and chosen the cabinet several times myself. So these are important metrics that you use. And I expect that they will also be used in selecting the cabinet in the next term. In terms of government efficiencies, or efficiency, it doesn't necessarily mean the creation of new ministries, but it could result in that, but it's not our intention to grow the number of ministries. It is to ensure that work is done more effectively in a different way so that we can better serve the citizens of the country. And that may necessitate some reorganization, and reorganization along the lines of not just physical reorganization, but workload reorganization, and also the tools that we use to deliver the efficiency will vastly change. So those are the key things that we are looking at.
Is there a particular ministry that you're not satisfied with in this past term?
No, it is not just about a particular ministry being satisfied with that. I think we have made progress in every single sector. In every single sector, we've made progress. And therefore, take for example, we moved from, when we were campaigning in 2020, the pensioners in Region 1 were saying, oh, we used to come out here, we can't get our pension, and that pension was half of what it is today per month. We can't get it, we're sent back in, etc. We started trying to get the pensions into the communities. Now we want to make sure that they don't even have to come out at all. They get it into a bank account. It's the evolution of that. So this sort of engagement, so that means new tools. Should we now contract out the delivery of pension to a private group, and they have to now, for that service, they have to get the pension to every pensioner in their home, within a particular period, so they hand deliver the pension? Or do we get everyone to create a bank account, every pensioner, and they then go and get the money paid into the bank account, and then they have a card issued, maybe any card, so that means necessitate the development of a system where they have enough ATMs across the country where the pensioners are leisurely with a card, a debit card, can then go and withdraw their money when they want it. So it's building out that infrastructure. All of these things have to be explored, but it's primary in our thinking now. How do we do this fast and we get better service to our people? So, for example, if we're contracting out, we may not need all of the staff to hand deliver the pension, process the pension. They could form a company and do this through the company. That's if we decide to go that route. Not that we have. Or if we're doing it through the bank account now, then a lot of those people, we don't need the vouchers anymore. So the people who are working on vouchers can be redeployed to do something else. That is the thinking where we have. We're constantly looking to see how we can do what we're doing better in government. And that is why law enforcement will change too. Like a lot of the electronic means of monitoring traffic and issuing tickets and a whole range of things, security features. So we don't have to have so many policemen on the road. We're challenged too. We have a police force that is relatively small for a large country like ours. We have like a country as big as the United Kingdom with a small police force. So if we want to be very efficient and can protect our borders and keep our people safe, our best bet is technology. So we're thinking about all of these issues.
Leon Susaran, Little Guy in the News, Queens, New York. Thank you, Dr. Bharrat,
Right.
for having me. Every time I visit, there is always some rapid transformation in the country, and I try to document some of it for the diaspora and
1 minute, please.
further afield.
Yes. Go on.
Yes, lots of rapid transformation at every visit I come, and I come often. So, Dr. Jagdeo, is there any plans for the PPP, the new administration, about the traffic lights in Georgetown across
all
the
of
area?
that. Traffic lights, everything. Road safety is a key issue here. It's part of that flyer that we circulated yesterday to enhance focus. So how do we keep people safe on the road? So it is about traffic lights, better signs, sidewalks, barriers, policing, better policing, looking at speeding, a whole plan, diversion, making sure that we have like better management of traffic. All of that is part of the comprehensive plan to focus on road safety. We're losing too many of our people on the road. Too many.
Hi, good afternoon, Kimal King for Ghana Standard. Mr. Jagdeo, regarding the question of the development bank that you have talked about, where would the money come from? Would it be a private sector-led initiative or state-run?
Government, state-led initiative. We have decided on the seed capital for the bank and how that will come about already. All of that has been agreed on. So we already have a concept in mind how it would operate, the seed capital needed to start it off, everything. We're not like the other parties. When we make a promise, we know what we're about. We're moving towards this. This is not private sector initiative. It would work in collaboration with the private sector. So for example, if like you have a merchant bank now, a new merchant bank, we may be able to raise, a person may be able to raise part of the capital from us, from that is the development bank, and if the project is bigger, then maybe another part from a merchant bank. But because our terms would be vastly different than the terms of the merchant bank, it helps to de-risk the merchant bank from, or de-risk the loan, so that the merchant bank would feel more comfortable lending money to that entity. So we want to focus a lot on small and medium scale enterprises. The big guys, I think what we are doing now through the merchant bank, and we changed the law to allow representative offices of the big companies in the world, the financial institutions, to have an office here without setting up a full bank. Already Citibank, which is massive, has indicated an interest in setting up a representative office here. So that would help with a lot of the big projects by Guyanese companies and others to get access to that financing for their capital project without having to go to our local banking system.
How soon should people expect to be able to tap into that development
Well,
bank?
we are hoping to start working on it as soon as we get back into office, so 2026.
Okay, for the next term, you've spoken about building out a post-oil economy. What areas should we expect to see major investments in, as opposed to the areas where you'll see a decline in investment compared to the term that is ending?
So clearly, if you build a bridge, then you don't have to build back that bridge again. So we just need to move on. At some stage, we will complete the road network that we're planning to build. So the road network, the 4-lane road network that we said we wanted to build, is from Parika to the bridge. Region 3 is the second most populous region in Guyana. So that will be completed. We will then complete the 4-lane road all the way to the airport. We complete the contract that's ongoing on the East Coast to Mahaika, and possibly widen the road from, again, and focus back on the main road from Annandale all the way to Mahaika again, by Unity, where it merges with the other road, to do a broader road there, so we can have 8 lanes coming in from the East Coast, which is heavily populated. Then awarding the contract from Mahaika to Rosignol to do the 4-lane road, and doing the 4-lane road from New Amsterdam all the way to the border with Molson Creek. So that's already awarded. That's Essequibo Coast, widening the road by 8 feet from Charity to Supernal. Then there are some additional roads that we plan to do, but these are upgrade roads, like going along the banks of the river to open up more land. We've already, I don't want to get into many details, like Molson Creek, going to Oriala, all of these places. Goshen going up to Bartica, start moving along that area. That's on road network. The part from completing the Mabura, the Linden-Soosdijk Highway, and then the Mabura stretch, and upgrading. We would start looking at the possibility of going to the border from Mabura to the border. Looking at it probably in the first phase, a crusher on surface that can handle the heavy traffic, because the traffic is really, really heavy coming out from these areas now, and then later paving it. So that's road. That would allow major shifts in settlement patterns, in economic activities, a whole range of things. And so that's one. The bridges, we're almost completing the network of bridges across the country, from the border all the way. The Berbice one will be definitely completed. So clearly, when you finish that, your capital program for those will decrease significantly. You ask where it will decrease. We have to, coming back to the post-oil and gas economy and what would be the key components of this. So we are now looking at the services sector. Services will provide major growth pole for economy. We're going to have 12 international hotels. We're moving now to incentivize the large eco lodges in the interior, because now we have some small lodges, but you can't really get ecotourism going. In terms of assets for ecotourism, we have some of the best assets in the world. We have more bird species than the whole United States of America. We have like huge biodiversity hotspots. We have like 86% of virgin forest. I don't even want to go through that. You're going to hear about this at the Biodiversity Summit, which is coming up next week. A lot of that. So that's a big growth pole. One growth pole, services, but tourism, adding those together. And environmental services, I'm grouping all of that together. Big growth pole for the future. Second is agriculture. Agriculture, both from an export industry, that is why the hubs to process, like let them a hub to process food, and then the airport there to fly, have a lot of freight cargo aircrafts coming in to fly food out. So both from an export perspective and a replacement of export also dimension. That could be that will be another major growth pole for the industry. The third has to do with the connection with Brazil I'm talking about. Because once we have that deep water port, northern Brazil will have to use Guyana for their exports and also a lot of imports into northern Brazil. The logistics, the warehousing, all of these things, the trucking services, major new growth pole for our companies and Guyanese people. These are the information technology area is a big one. We're looking at it. If we have cheaper energy, we will then be able to now have the data centers, a whole range of developments surrounding that. So there are new growth poles, several of those that we are working on at this stage now, and big investments will flow into these areas to make sure that they are that they grow rapidly. The agriculture is great because on aquaculture alone we can grow $1 billion industry. I think a $1 billion US industry per year in aquaculture alone, leaving out the farming of grains, the soya, the rice, the expansion of rice in the hinterland, the 100,000 acres we're bringing in, the replacement of the red beans and the black eye, the cooking oil. All of our cooking oil could be done right here in Guyana by pressing the soya. A whole range of these things. That the focus is there. The dairy industry would see a big boost, meat production, because the price of the demand has grown for meat. So we see an increase in the price of meat. Although we've expanded production on pork massively, chicken and beef, But when people earn more, they eat more meat. That's a global trend. If you have higher disposable income, your diet changes. And if the income level is growing so rapidly that the change in the consumption of meat is moving faster than our fast growth in production. So we need to expand that even to cater for the changes. People are eating more chicken by far, or pork or beef or whatever else. And that's why you see the prices ticking upwards, because the demand is there. And our people are eating differently, they're consuming differently, because they do that. So those are some of the areas for the new growth board.
Thank you. Given the scale of spending, do you see the need for a return of a ministry with responsibility for efficiency? And you have said before that around 2027, 2028 would be a reasonable timeline for the country to see a reduction in the capital spend, because you're likely to execute many of your major projects. Does that still seem like a reasonable timeline?
Yeah, if we're building like the hospitals would have been completed. If we build 12 hospitals and complete by that period, we need to build a Georgetown new hospital. Once we move out the maternity ward and the children's ward to the new hospital, then we need to upgrade Georgetown, modern facility, really nice landscaping, park, maybe even the hospital people can come out in the evening just visiting their family. Really good hospital here in Georgetown. So that's a new one we have to do. We'd have to start tackling. Then we have to rehabilitate Linden, Barticum, possibly a new hospital there too, but not a large hospital. And because catering for that, West Demerara has to be rehabilitated. So the others we have to rehabilitate. So that's the additional capital expenditure I'm talking about. Then the schools, etc., we need to complete rehabilitation. We built or awarded about 100 new schools, but we'd have to upgrade the others. I don't think those will cost as much as the initial outlay. So we may see you see a reduction, but once we complete those, then you can see a vast drop off in capital spending, because the infrastructure is built already. The roads are built, the highways are built. So you'd see that dropping off from the budget. So I think we may, given the ambitious program, we may still see a fairly high degree of capital spending, but it will be on the new things, because these will come off the books. So by the end of this year, all the bridges to Lethem will be built except Kurupukari. So we need to just do Kurupukari. Linden Bridge will be completed too, the 4-lane across Linden. So that's what I'm talking about. So we are thinking about within another 5 years, you would see a whole slew of modern infrastructure, services, to the people of the country. More jobs, more opportunities. And but if the current projections for oil and gas prices hold, we'll be able to fund more of this from our own resources, right? So that is what I see changing, and we'll be able to save a substantial amount of money for the future, starting in those years, upwards of $4 billion, if the current projections hold. That is, if oil prices don't fall off steeply, we'll be able to save about $4 billion per year from around 2027 or so for future generations. So we'd have to look at that. But of course, if prices change and stuff, APNU wants to spend out, not save anything. They're spending money we don't even have as yet. So they're thinking about that.
And the efficiency ministry?
I just answered that question about efficiency in government. Not necessarily a ministry, however, the focus has to be on that. Greater audits of projects, etc. We need to see that the projects are yielding what they're intended for.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Vishani
good.
Raghavar from the newsroom. Three questions for me. The first is the government aiming for a second oil auction next year?
And second,
Oil auction. The second is the young candidates you mentioned on your list, those below 25, what role do you see them playing in government if your party is re-elected? And additionally, for Mr. Dharmlal, will he have a government role if you're re-elected?
so let's start with Dharmlal. Nobody has a government role now. Nobody knows what they're going to have. So that's one. The second one is a lot of people who've been on our list in the past, they get included in many areas of government. So we believe in building capacity. It doesn't mean that we're not going to focus on other people, but they also get looked at in a positive light. So it doesn't mean nobody knows what they're going to get now at this stage. We don't say you're going to be chairing a board. You're going to be the CEO of an entity. All of those things are, we haven't won the elections as yet. We're not so arrogant, although we think we're going to win the elections, but the other parties, that's all they do. They're telling people, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, etc. Every member. Why do you think France went across to the other man? They signed an agreement. It's a secret agreement they have that he is going to get something in if they win. Well, they know they can't win, even if they get a seat, etc. They're signing, giving away things they don't even have as yet. We're a different approach to government. So we're pleased that people came on the list, but right now there's no promise to anyone on the list. We're aiming for an auction next year, but it depends on the completion of the seismic. So if we can complete, because we don't want to go back to an auction without good data now. We had some data in the past. We went to the first auction, but as I explained, there were several things not settled at that time. We hadn't settled a new PSA. We had not settled a new law. So the people bidding didn't know what environment they were bidding into. And then they had to use the old data that was there, and some of it was 2D data, and it was spotty, not for all of the blocks. So now, if we can remedy that, we expect that you would have some really serious bids for the new blocks.
Dr. Jagdeo, just a few more questions.
Yes, go on.
Just to follow up on the infrastructure plan and the road network, the Lindan to Lethem Road, the Morbura Hill to Lethem, are you going to seek external funding, or will you, like you said, you're using our own financing for that?
So the Morbura to Lethem, and by the way, I see APNU taking credit for that. If you go to the National Development Strategy, that was 1996, and you'll see it has paving from Morbura to Linden in it. So they like to take credit for that, you know. But it depends. Brazil is interested too. We've had discussions with Brazil. So it could be a joint project with Brazil, or it could be funded by a loan because it's capital, or maybe come from our own resources. We have not settled that as yet, but definitely the road would be upgraded to enhance traffic, the trade between Guyana and Brazil.
Also, recently we saw a U.S. senator, introducing legislation to bolster security ties with Guyana and deter Venezuelan aggression. Can you comment on this? And also, do you plan on having a 100-day plan? If so, what
plan?
A 100-day plan in office for the next term, and if so, what are some of the priorities?
We don't like this 100-day plan. Like APNU give it a bad name, you know. You remember 100 days they were supposed to double old age pension, do all sorts of things. And then if you mention a 100 days plan now, I think people would just say, evoke bad memories. We are a happy party. We don't want to like bring back a sad era into the psyche of our people. So we have a day one plan, getting back to work. We've been working for 5 years and we just go right back to work the next day because there's so many things. Think about the years after COVID, like 3.5 years maybe. Think about all the changes so far. Look at the buildings going up, hospitals, hotels, highways, etc. And this happened in 3.5 years. Just think about it, a bridge across the Demerara River. It happened in 3.5 years. Just imagine if we work that pace for 5 years, how the country will be. And that's what we intend to do. So 100 days now, we are avoiding the 100 days. On the document in the Senate, we're pleased that they would see it important, the United States government, to have the Department of Defense report regularly on the Venezuelan aggression towards Guyana, and hopefully to ensure that their designs on our country, which is an aggressive design, will not succeed. So we're quite pleased with that, the proposal. Yeah.
Finally, for me, has government reached out to the new Surinamese president and government to have any discussions or so continue collaboration?
I'm sure that Prime Minister would have spoken with the president of Suriname, and I am aware that there are, anyhow, let me don't say that, but the PM has had discussions. This was only on Wednesday. It was yesterday. He was there for the inauguration, and we will have a full brief from the Prime Minister. I expect and I hope that we will have good relationship with the government of Suriname, because we're neighbors. There are many things we can do together to enhance the welfare of our people, to expand economic opportunities for the people of both countries. And we are hoping to pursue a good collaboration with Suriname. Okay. Well, thank you very much.